Hello students, in the last video we were discussing about the operations on an objects like scalars, vectors and points. Now we are going to discuss one such operation, that is affine sums. Affine sum is nothing but it is an addition operation which is performed on affine space. Then to perform affine addition, we are going to consider all three objects. Those are scalars, points and vectors. The point we are considering here is a q. You can observe it in a diagram. The point we are considering is a q. The scalar we are considering is alpha. The value of alpha at the point q is 0 and the vector what we are considering is v. The value of alpha will be 0 at q and the value of alpha will be 1 at r. Whenever we increase the value of alpha to a positive value from q, then we are going to get a new points on the vector v. Whenever the alpha value will become 1, then we are going to get a new point called r. In between q and r, we will be having so many multiple points on the vector r with a specific values of alpha, and those should be a positive value. If you give negative value for alpha, then we'll move in the other direction of a vector. We are not interested in that direction. We want to move only towards the direction of a vector. So whenever you increase the value of alpha from 0 to a positive value, then we are going to get a new point on the vector v. In the same way, whenever you give a value for alpha greater than 1, then we are going to get a new point in the same direction of v. One such point we are considering is known as p, that is p of alpha. Then how can we represent this p of alpha? Our new point p is p equal to q plus alpha v. Why we have written such a relation for p is, starting from q, if you give a new value for alpha which is greater than 0 on a vector v, then we are going to get a new point p. That is why the relation which is written for p is p equal to q plus alpha v. Then what is nothing but affine addition? In an affine addition, we'll consider three objects: a scalar, a point and a vector. Starting from a point, if we give a positive value for alpha in the direction of v, that is in the direction of vector v, we are going to get a new point. When we get a new point, that is known as affine addition. Then we already know the subtraction of 2 points. Here we are considering 2 points as r and q. When we subtract those 2 points, the result will be v. Then when we combine these two equations, then we are going to get p equal to q plus alpha into r minus q. That is, in the place of v, we are substituting the second equation, that is r minus q. When you simplify this, then we'll get alpha r plus 1 minus alpha into q. Here we are calling alpha has alpha 1 and 1 minus alpha has alpha 2. Then the equation become p equal to alpha 1 r plus alpha 2 q. Where to satisfy this equation, we need to consider a condition, that is always alpha 1 plus alpha 2 should be equal to 1. This is regarding affine addition. Then the next concept what we are going to discuss is convexity. As you know, the convex polygon is nothing but a polygon when you consider two random points inside a polygon, and when you join a line segment between those 2 points, even the line segment should also lie inside a polygon. Such a polygon is known as convex polygon. Now we are going to discuss convexity for a set of points. We already know what is nothing but convex polygon. Now we are going to define a convexity for a set of points. For that, we are considering a set of n points. We'll call those points as p1, p2, p3, etc. up to pn, where you can consider any one point as a starting point or the initial point, where the alpha value at that point will be 0. Then if you increase alpha value to some other positive value, then you are going to get a new point. We'll call that as p2. Again, if you increase the alpha value to some other value, you are going to get a new point, that is known as p3, and so on for n more points. So those points are known as p1, p2, etc. up to pn, which are represented as p equal to alpha 1 p1. If you assume p1 is a starting point, then alpha 1 value will be 0, where we'll consider an initial point where alpha 1 value will be 0. That point we will call it as p1. If you increase alpha value to some other value, we'll call that increased value as alpha 2, and the new point we are going to get is P2, and so on till some more points, that is Pn, where the condition need to be satisfied over here is alpha 1 plus alpha 2 etc. up to alpha n should be equal to 1. Along with this restriction or condition, we have one more additional restriction, that is always alpha value should be a positive value, that is alpha I greater than or equal to 0. Starting from 0, it can take any other value up to n, but it should not take any negative value. In this way, we have defined some n points, and then we are going to form a polygon around all these points in such a way that this polygon should be the smallest polygon which should enclose all the points which we have considered. Using this set of points, we are going to create a polygon. Polygon is created by joining some points. How this polygon need to be created is by joining some of the point where this polygon should be the smallest polygon which should enclose all the points what we have considered over here. Such a polygon is known as convex hull. Then the next topic what we are considering is a dot and cross product, where the orientation of one vector on the other vector will be defined in terms of dot and cross products, where dot product of u and v will be represented as u dot v. If u dot v equal to 0, then we'll say u and v are orthogonal to each other. Here we have considered u and v are vectors. Dot product of u and v can be written as u dot v. If u dot v equal to 0, then we can say u and v are orthogonal to each other. Then the square of magnitude of u can be represented as u dot u. When you observe in the diagram, here we have considered two vectors u and v. As you know, u and just a minute. As you know, u and v are two vectors where u is oriented on v by forming some angle theta. Then the angle between u and v, that is theta, can be represented as cos theta equal to u dot v divided by modulus u and modulus v. Then the length of the orientation of one vector u on the other vector v can be represented as modulus u cos theta, where this can be represented as modulus u cos theta equal to u dot v divided by modulus v, where the dot product what we are going to get over here will give the result as the dot product gives the result, that is the length of orientation of one vector on the other vector. How we are going to define the length or the smallest length of orientation of one vector on the other vector is, it is from the head of u till the vector v. Whatever the orthogonal line segment what you are observing between u and v, that is nothing but the length of orientation of u on v. That is the result which is given by the dot product. That is what I have written over here. Then to call a set of vectors as a linearly independent vectors, this condition we will call two vectors as linearly independent vector whenever it is not possible to represent one vector in terms of another vector. Then we'll say those two vectors are linearly independent vectors. Now when we consider two non-parallel vectors u and v, then their cross product will be represented as u cross v, where dot product will be represented as u dot v and cross product will be represented as u cross v. Then when you observe in a diagram, here in a diagram we have considered two non-parallel vectors u and v, and the cross product between them is u cross v, which will give a new vector that we have represented in a diagram itself. Then why do we need a cross product is, the use of a cross product is to derive three mutually orthogonal vectors by considering two non-parallel vectors. Initially we need to consider two non-parallel vectors, then by performing a cross product we can obtain three mutually orthogonal vectors. The two non-parallel vectors what we have considered is u and v, then the cross product between them is u cross v. Then with respect to u and v, the first mutually orthogonal vector what we got is u cross v. We'll call this u cross v vector as n. Then u is one orthogonal vector, u cross v, that is n is next orthogonal vector. Now we need to find the third mutually orthogonal vector. We'll call that orthogonal vector as w. W will be obtained by u cross n. Then initially we have considered two non-parallel vector u cross v. Then using this we have obtained three mutually orthogonal vectors. Those are u, the second one is n is nothing but u cross v, the third one is w is nothing but u cross n. These are the three mutually orthogonal vectors. Then the angle theta which is formed between two non-parallel vector, that is u and v, will be represented as sin theta equal to modulus u cross v divided by mod u and mod v, where u, v and n will form a right-handed coordinate system where u will be pointed towards the thumb of a right hand, and then v represent forefinger of a right hand and n represents middle finger of a right hand. Even you can consider these three mutually orthogonal vectors as a right-handed coordinate system. Then the next topic what we are going to consider is planes. The 3 points which are not on the same line determine a plane. Here we have considered such 3 points as P, Q and R. Because these 3 points are not on the same line, they are going to define a plane. Then when we consider the edge of a plane, that is PQ, then the set of points which are existing on these line segment PQ will be represented as S of alpha equal to alpha P plus 1 minus alpha into Q. This kind of representation is nothing but a scalar representation of a point. The set of points on the line segment PQ will be represented as S of alpha equal to alpha P plus 1 minus alpha into Q. Now we'll consider a random point on a line segment PQ. We'll call it as S. If we join this point S to R, then we are going to get a new line segment on the plane. Then the set of points which are existing on this new line segment will be represented as T of beta equal to beta S plus 1 minus beta into R. Now in the second equation, if we substitute the value of S, then we are going to get a new equation, that is T of alpha comma beta equal to beta of alpha P plus 1 minus alpha into Q plus 1 minus beta into R. This is the equation we got when we substitute S value in the second equation. If you rearrange these values, then we are going to get the next equation, that is T of alpha comma beta equal to P plus beta of 1 minus alpha into Q minus P plus 1 minus beta into R minus P. This is regarding planes.